everyone, welcome back to my channel where I talk about topical steroid withdrawal. If you watched my last video, you were able to see a little bit of my journey and you got to see the ugly side of that whole process, right? You got to see pictures, you got to hear all of my yucky stories. And today I thought that it was worthwhile to share some of the things that I did that I feel really benefited me during that process, things that were not beneficial at all, and then just some things that I feel like were kind of indifferent about the whole thing. So without further ado, here we go. I'm not gonna waste time. So some things that were successful. I have a few things listed. I'm looking at my notes here. Actually quite a few things that I think that were really beneficial during that time of my topical steroid withdrawal process. There were two things major though in particular that I feel like I can attribute a lot of the successes that I had during that time, and two things that I feel like really got me through that process quicker than if I didn't do those things. So the first thing was eliminating toxins in the environment that I was in. What does that mean? So before I started the withdrawal process, I was in the process of doing toxin elimination from our environment. So like getting rid of all of our candles, getting rid of all of the perfumes that I had, getting rid of anything with fragrance, basically. Changing over our dish soap, our laundry soap, our lotions, deodorants, just everything, right? Just getting rid of anything that could be considered toxic in our environments. And so if you follow my Simple and Steadfast page on Instagram, you'll see where I post things that talk about eliminating those toxins in your environment and how I've just made simple swaps over the past few years to eliminate as much exposure as I can. And so I feel like that was a really important aspect of my TSW, because when you think about your body going through something traumatic and your body is trying to heal itself, just putting things on your body, putting things in your body, and being around things in your environment that are not supporting your body is slowing down the process, one, but two, could really inhibit any progress that you have made. So that was really important to me, because any of you TSW warriors, like, you know, anything that can help and anything that could get in the way of making progress, if I have to live one more day in this body like this, I'm gonna die. Or at least you feel like that, right? I'm sure you can resonate. So I would notice different reactions when I was around different toxins. So for example, when I would go over to a friend's house and we would have Bible study and we would hang out, she burns candles all the time, like Bath and Body Works candles, things that smell really excellent. But I would get so incredibly itchy when I was at her house, and it would take me like a day to recover from that. So when my arms and my stomach and my legs were in the process of just the weeping and the bumps and all the itching and having bruises on my body from itching so much, those were the areas of my body that were having the most trouble recovering being around candles. Another example, laundry detergent. So like when I would go to my family's house in Tennessee, if my clothes had been washed in something other than the toxin-free laundry detergent that I was using at the time and still using today, I would notice a considerable difference. So like with the itching and just the discomfort, I mean, and you can tell a difference, like when your body is going through something like that, you can notice any small change that's going on, whether it's good or bad. And when I was around those certain toxins, I would notice a change, a negative change. So eliminating any kind of environmental toxins as possible is a complete number one recommendation. If you don't do anything else, do your homework in figuring out, okay, what are my environmental toxins? Am I a candle junkie and wanting my house to smell good? Am I using fragrance-filled lotions and skincare products and, I don't know, bathroom wipes and trash bags and, you know, all these different things? What kind of laundry soap and dish soap am I using? What am I using to clean my floors in my bathroom? You know, just everything. So do your homework. And if you want help with that, or if you feel like you need a resource for that, please feel free to reach out, or feel free to follow me on my Instagram page, Simple and Steadfast. I talk a lot about toxin-free living. So that's a huge one. The second biggest one is diet change. So there were a few people in the TSW community when I was going through this who spoke on diet change. And those people were really integral in my process. I remember reading a blog of a gal, I don't even remember her name, but she was the one story that got me started on this whole journey. And she detoxed in a month because she had changed her diet in such a significant way. So that was really awesome for her. Unfortunately, I didn't get through that process in a month, but I feel like I got through a lot quicker with all of my diet changes. So please forgive me. It's been a while since I was doing hours and hours of research every week, specifically on diets and what foods to eat and what foods not to eat, but this is what I remember from that time. So I went gluten-free, vegan, sugar-free, nightshade-free, which is a subtype of vegetable which can produce inflammatory properties. And so that consists of white potatoes and eggplant, bell pepper, and tomatoes. So those are nightshades, and those are known to have inflammatory properties, especially for people in the eczema community. So I stayed away from those. And so I also did kind of like a modified autoimmune protocol, if you're familiar with that. If you're not, Google it. But I was staying away from basically any other kind of inflammatory food. So like corn, soy. There was some guy, forgive me, I don't even remember his name, but I would watch his YouTube videos, and he recommended staying away from any kind of fats, which at that time for me wasn't an option because I was losing so much weight that I had to have some kind of protein and some kind of fat in my diet. And so I chose to eat nuts and nut butters and cook my vegetables in olive oil. But I was staying away from avocados too, which are really fatty. So basically what I was eating, sauteed veggies or roasted veggies with either rice or quinoa for lunch and dinner. And again, that was no legumes, so no beans or anything like that. So just strictly vegetables, rice, and quinoa. And I would use like turmeric to season, salt and pepper, but that was basically it. And then for breakfast, I would have like these, if you all are familiar with her, the Minimalist Baker, she is wonderful. My sister-in-law actually introduced me to her. She makes these delicious breakfast oatmeal cookies. They're not cookies. They're basically like a little oatmeal bake, individual serving, but they're like a blueberry oatmeal bake cookie. And so I would make those, or I would do a modified version of that and do an oatmeal bake. So that had like oats and almond milk and almond butter or peanut butter and different things like that. I'm pretty sure it had like flaxseed egg in there. So yeah, that's essentially what I was eating And I would try to make smoothies too. So I got a vegan protein powder, a pea protein powder, that I would try to intake as much protein as possible. I also recommend like any kind of B12 if you're going that approach, because being a vegan, you know that calcium is hard to come by unless you're taking supplements or it's added into your food. And so I was B12 deficient, I'm pretty sure, because I was getting like no calcium or no nothing that had B12 in it. So like nutritional yeast is a good thing. Yeah. So that's what I did diet-wise, and I would really notice a difference if I strayed away from that. So for example, August 2018, or October, excuse me, of 2018, I went off of gluten and tried to decrease my sugar intake. And I did that for a few months, and then Christmas came around, and I could not help myself Christmas Day to some delicious Christmas cookies, because I have a little bit of a sweet tooth. And I ate, I kid you not, 5 cookies in one sitting, filled with gluten, filled with sugar, filled with joy. Yeah, filled with joy. And the next day, my arms wept for an entire 8-hour drive back to Virginia. So if that tells you anything, diet has so much to do with the healing process, and it can really harm that process if you're not careful. And there were occasions like that where it was not beneficial for me to do that. And I mean, if you do the research, you can see different testimonies of people who have other conditions who literally heal their bodies with the diets that they choose. So, I mean, I have a friend, and her dad literally healed his cancer, his prostate cancer, and I believe he was stage 2 or stage 3, and he went a completely veggie diet. Vegetables. He may have had some grains in there, like rice and quinoa and that kind of stuff. But he literally healed his cancer by his diet and eliminating toxins as well. And so you can research it yourself. Do whatever suits you. That is the diet that suited me. And I continued that very strictly for 4 months. And then I just slowly integrated meat back into my diet. So, 1 month I introduced salmon back in because of the fish oil, really good for skin, which obviously I needed all the help I could get. So I slowly reintroduced salmon back into the diet for a month, and then the following month I slowly introduced chicken back in, and then it was, I believe I did beef next the following month, and then the following month I did pork, which that didn't agree with me so much, so I stayed off of that for a little while. So it was a very slow reintegration process of bringing these just meat back into my diet. So it was like 6 or 7 months before I was even eating meat regularly and different kinds of meat regularly. And I followed that diet. I mean, I went a full year without having like nightshades. I still haven't had gluten. I've been gluten-free for 2.5 years and loving it. I did reintroduce sugar back into my diet. I'm trying to think. I eventually reintroduced eggs back in after 1.5 years. I just recently started reintroducing dairy back in, like within the past few months. I've been eating goat cheese now for like 6 months. And that's about like 2 years post the onset of this process. Or, the onset of the process and when I started the diet change. So my diet is not completely back to normal. And I'm 2.5 years out from starting that change. So it is a process. It is a lifestyle that you have to kind of adopt and just embrace. And I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything right now in my life. You do what you have to do. You know exactly what I mean by that. You do what you have to do to heal your body. And so I feel like getting rid of environmental toxins and changing my diet were two of the best moves that I could have made in this process. The third thing, no moisturizer. I found that every time I put moisturizer on my body to try to relieve like my chapped lips or my arms or anything like that, that my skin would start weeping. And an example of that, and I don't use like chapstick brand anymore. Like for years, I would only use the chapstick medicated brand, and that was it. But like these are like expensive chapsticks, like Young Living and Dr. Bronner's, you know, like good chapsticks. And when I was going through the process of just my lips weeping and crusting over and weeping and crusting over, where I spent a month, you know, in 15 days of that month, I was drinking my meals through a straw because I couldn't open my mouth to eat a meal. I went through 4 cycles of that. And I believe now, in hindsight, that it was when I would use the chapstick. So like my lips would start to look okay again. And then I would put chapstick on like in the morning. And then that evening, my lips would start weeping again. And I had to start the cycle all over again. And I didn't realize that that was what it was, but that's what it was. So for me, no moisturizer was a game changer. I'll give an example. I was using shea butter mixed with essential oils and Young Living essential oils, like top of the line, you know, not ones from Walmart, to try to like heal my skin and really soothe the reaction that I had going on at that time. I actually was in so much pain one night in the middle of the night when I went to go rub it on that I actually fainted and hit my head on my bathtub, on my ceramic bathtub, and my husband had to rush me to the emergency room. I was fine, but it just goes to show like my body was rejecting any kind of moisturizer intervention. So for me, that helped. When I really needed something like on my lips, I have been addicted to chapstick, y'all, for literally my entire life before this process. And so for me to not use chapstick is a big deal. Like it's a really big deal. And so when I was going through the process with my lips doing that, the only thing that I could put on them was water. And if you know anything about that, you know that that doesn't really do much other than it kind of dries it out worse, but I just needed something to put on there. So really, water. Now, the only thing that I use on my skin is Young Living baby lotion. Yes, you heard me correctly. Baby lotion from Young Living is the only thing that I put on my skin. I've even tried putting essential oils just on my skin, and I've had bad reactions, as you saw in the last video. So it's not that it's no moisturizer forever. It's just during that really traumatic phase in the process, no moisturizer at all. Hello, Maya. Sorry, my family just came in from playing outside. Yeah. Another thing that was really beneficial for me, sunbathing and exercise. Sunbathing, oh my gosh, to a TSW warrior is like the best thing ever. As you saw in my last video, I literally took my shirt off in 55-degree weather one winter and just sunbathed. Like it feels so good. And it's actually so good for you. I don't need to tell you all the reasons that it's good for you because you already know that, right? The sun is good for you, in moderation, of course. And exercise. Like, I surprisingly had so much energy, even with my diet change, because I wasn't getting a lot of protein or, calories for that matter. And I surprisingly had a lot of energy. And so just any kind of exercise, like, just felt good because I think it was helping detox my system of any kind of impurities and toxins that were sitting there. So I decreased the number of showers that I took. And I was a girl who showered every single day without fail. If I went a day without showering, it was because either I didn't have access to a shower, which never happened, or like it was a yard work day or something like that. So decreasing the amount of showers, and actually I stopped using body wash on anything that didn't need body wash, right? So I washed my pits and I washed my goods because that's really all that needed to be clean, because I wanted to keep the oils from my skin, all of the natural oils that help hydrate my skin. I wanted to keep that intact. And so I would shower like every other day, every couple days, every few days, depending on how I felt. And when I would dry off, I wouldn't like rub my skin dry. I would just like pat it dry to try to keep as much of that oil on my skin as possible, because that, your body produces that for a reason. It produces it to heal itself and to maintain the integrity of your skin. And I don't know, maybe it's different for you if you have like really greasy skin, but I don't know anybody with eczema who has really greasy skin. So there you go. That's what I did. Another thing that sounds so kind of crazy, not really, but just weird. I never had heard of it before. So I had gone to a chiropractor just to try to like get another holistic doctor point of view. And he recommended, I don't remember his last name, Dr. Jim Bob Thompson, I think. Anyway, look up Dr. Jim Bob. He is fantastic. He is so funny and so knowledgeable. That's not who I went to. I went to a chiropractor in town, but he recommended this. It's called an Adrenal Cocktail. So as I'm sure you know, the topical steroid withdrawal process, a lot of it has to do with adrenal fatigue and adrenal trauma, right? What's the word that they call, adrenal something. Anyway, it's not important. Adrenal fatigue is the big thing. So he recommends an adrenal cocktail, basically to kind of like jumpstart your adrenal glands, because they're kind of shot with this whole process, right? You take away the steroids and your adrenal gland is just sitting there lifeless. And so this cocktail consists of 1/4 of a teaspoon of cream of tartar, a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt, so I used Himalayan sea salt, and then 2 to 4 ounces of some kind of juice. I used, and Dr. Jim Bob recommended this, Ningxia Red by Young Living. I sound like this is a whole sales pitch. It's not a sales pitch. These are literally the things that I use, and I trust these things, so that's why I use them. Ningxia Red, it's a really delicious juice full of antioxidants, full of super wonderful things for you. And I could give you a big spiel on that, but I won't. So I would mix that once a day and just drink it. And I feel like, I couldn't necessarily tell a difference. Like, oh, I had my adrenal cocktail today. This is, why I feel good today. Or, oh, I didn't have it. I don't feel as good today. But I really feel like that helped give me energy as I was doing this. And even though I couldn't outwardly see the effects of that, I know that was helping, just because of all the research that I was doing on the adrenal glands and different things that were aiding like the body process during that time. I believe that this stuff was excellent for that. So fourth a teaspoon cream of tartar, fourth a teaspoon sea salt, and then 2 to 4 ounces of some kind of juice. So I used Ningxia Red. Lastly, one of the huge things, oh my gosh. So Larissa from Eczema Diaries, shout out to you, girlfriend, because you recommended quercetin. Oh my gosh. Quercetin, it is a natural antihistamine. Instead of taking like Benadryl or Claritin or something like that, it's a natural antihistamine. And I was taking that when I was so itchy. I was taking that like 2 to 3 times a day. That stuff I actually felt made a difference. So like when we went to Tennessee for the holidays, my mom has a dog that I'm allergic to, and she has a cat too that I'm also allergic to. And so I was just like itching like crazy, like so miserable because I was itching so bad. And quercetin really helped. That was a game changer. So those were all things that I feel in my process were successful. I'm now going to talk about things that I don't feel like worked for me. That's not to say that they won't work for you. They just did not work for me, right? So we already talked about moisturizer, and that includes anything from chapstick. I mean, I was using rose ointment on my face when my face was weeping. I was using shea butter. Like I was using natural things, but any kind of moisturizer was not kosher with my body. Again, eating any kind of inflammatory foods, so like gluten, sugar, nightshades, that kind of stuff, corn, soy, that wasn't good for me either. Environmental irritants, we already talked about this. Celery juice. So in my research, I started following this doctor, and I won't name his name, but he basically sings celery juice's praise, right? He swears by this stuff. And I was like, I'll do anything to feel better, you know. Can I cut off a limb and give it to you if it'll make me feel better, right? You know how desperate you get when you're feeling like this. You totally get it. So I was taking an entire head of celery and juicing it every morning and drinking 16 ounces of celery juice before I would eat anything. I was drinking that every single morning for about a month until I developed what I think was a stomach ulcer. My stomach would hurt all throughout the day, and then it would hurt worse when I would eat meals. And so I started doing research like negative effects of celery juice. So fun fact, people with eczema probably have what is known as a leaky gut, which basically means that things kind of seep out of your gut and invade other parts of your body, which then creates skin irritants in different locations. And so celery has something called oxalates in it, and they are not digested easily in the body. And so what happens is the oxalates are in your gut, and then they're supposed to be, transported out, like out the poop chute. Too much information, I see that there. People with leaky guts, however, allow the oxalates to seep into their bodies, and basically it's like a super irritant and can cause harm to your body. Didn't know this at the time until I developed this, what I think was a stomach ulcer. Also, fun fact, oxalates can inhibit the uptake and absorption of calcium. So that was a double whammy for me because of my diet changes and with my eczema and with my steroid withdrawal process. So it was inhibiting any kind of calcium that I was supposed to be getting, and it was causing a stomach ulcer. So celery juice did not work for me. Maybe it'll work for you. I don't know. I'm not going to recommend it. Cold weather. You may already know this because of experience, or if you don't, watch out. Cold weather got me. So anytime that I would go outside for anything in the winter time, even like post the heavy trauma portion of the TSW, like just this past winter, right? And I'm 2.5 years out. Like my fingers were weeping walking in the park for a couple hours this past winter. So cold weather, I don't know what it is, but it makes my skin weep in those like hot spots. So if you can avoid cold weather, I would avoid it like the plague. If not, just bundle up, try to, keep your body insulated, especially those hot spots that tend to weep. Even if you were healed, or even if you were on the other side of this, like I am, it doesn't matter. Cold weather is the devil. I think so anyway. I am a spring, summer, fall kind of gal. Let's talk about some things that I did. I don't know if they made a big difference, but I did them anyway, just in case. So different detox things to my body. So detoxing is good for anybody with any kind of ailment, but especially with topical steroid withdrawal. I mean, getting any kind of toxin out of your body to allow your body to heal itself is super beneficial. So I went to the chiropractor one time and my face looked like Quasimodo, as you saw in my previous video. He did a detox foot bath for me for like 20 and 25 minutes, and it was this little machine that he inserted into a tub of water, and I just sat there, and it was, I can't even scientifically tell you what it did. I just think that it used some kind of something. It basically pulled out junk from the bottom of my feet. And you're thinking, no, your feet don't do that. Your feet do that. Look it up. I had brown stuff in the water. It was nasty. And it didn't come from anywhere other than my feet. So I did that. Didn't hurt me, but I didn't notice a huge difference. I also was taking milk thistle drops for detox purposes also. And I was also drinking a detox tea once in a while, just to try to do anything to get toxins out of my body, to help my body heal. I was drinking turmeric tea every day for that whole winter, and a little bit in the spring too, as an anti-inflammatory support to my body. Again, I don't know if I noticed a difference really, but I kept doing it because even if I didn't notice it, it wasn't hurting me. Also using a face ice pack. So my sister had sent me this thing that literally straps onto your face. It's actually kind of creepy. Like, yeah, it's weird, but it's an ice pack specifically made for your face. I used that a few times. I had difficulty using it when my face was really weeping, because it would stick to my face, and that wasn't good for anybody. But when my face was swollen and it was dried and crusted over, I would use it then to kind of help with the inflammation. So those are some things that I did that I don't know if they made a huge difference, but they didn't hurt me, so I did them. So that's a lot of information, and I will go ahead and say I am not a medical doctor. I am not paid to provide this information. I'm not saying that these things will work for you or these things won't work for you or anything like that. I'm just sharing my experience with this process. And I wanted to give as much detail as possible because I know if you're like me, you will literally do hours and hours of research to try to figure this out. And anything that you think might be beneficial for you, you will do it. You will move mountains to just get a little bit of relief. So, if any of this was helpful for you, that is a win for me. Again, like I've said before, if this helps anybody, this whole process was worth it. And if anybody has any specific questions about any of this stuff, or hey, what was this product that you used? Or what was that Adrenal Cocktail thing again? Like, or what do you think about this? I'm not an expert. I have lived experience, and we can figure it out together. So thank you so much for your time. Always feel free to reach out and ask questions, because I would love to have that discussion with you, and God bless you for going through this process. Thanks so much. I hope you have a great day.